Welcome back to the Echoes of Ihsan podcast.
Oh, it's great to be back.
Today we're diving into something truly fascinating.
Okay.
The concept of kumus, as detailed in Sahih Bukhari Hadith, Book 53. 1/5 of booty to the cause of Allah.
Sounds interesting.
Sahih Bukhari is considered one of the most trusted collections of the Prophet Muhammad's sayings and actions, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's a cornerstone of Islamic tradition.
Yeah, and this specific book dives into how 1/5 of certain gains are dedicated to the cause of Allah,
That's right.
offering a glimpse into how wealth, societal interactions,
Right.
and even leadership were viewed during the Prophet's time.
You know, it's amazing how these teachings from so long ago are still so relevant today.
Yeah.
Like, we can get so much out of exploring this book. Valuable insights, into wealth distribution, societal harmony,
Oh, yeah?
and leadership itself.
I'm-
Not just from a historical perspective,
Yeah.
but, for our lives today.
I'm excited to unpack this. So the book starts with a story that feels very human and relatable
Okay.
about Ali Fatima and some camels.
I've heard of this one.
It takes place right after the Battle of Badr, a pivotal moment in early Islamic history.
Right. A key moment for sure.
Ali's about to marry Fatima, the Prophet's daughter, and he's busy making arrangements.
Okay.
He's received 2 camels as part of the spoils of war, a common practice back then.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And this seemingly ordinary event really sets the stage for understanding kumus and its connection to inheritance.
It does. It's crucial to remember that for the early Muslim community,
Right.
these concepts were woven into their everyday lives.
Absolutely. It's not just abstract ideas.
No, not at all.
But then the story takes a dramatic turn.
Oh, how so?
Ali discovers that his camels have been brutally injured,
Oh, no.
their humps cut off.
What?
And the culprit, Hamza, the Prophet's uncle, who was intoxicated at the time.
Wow.
Ali, understandably upset, goes to the Prophet to report this.
That makes sense.
And the Prophet's reaction is so revealing.
Really?
He immediately covers himself, a gesture that shows just how serious this is.
Yeah.
And he sets out to address it.
So he finds Hamza still intoxicated.
Yes,
Yeah.
but he doesn't excuse his behavior
Right.
because of that.
No.
He actually reprimands him,
Interesting.
highlighting the importance of respecting others' property, even in that state.
That's a powerful reminder that our actions have consequences,
Right.
regardless of our state of mind. It
Absolutely.
really speaks to accountability.
And then the focus shifts to Fatima's request for her inheritance
Okay.
from the Prophet's possessions, specifically the Fae.
Right.
Now, Fae refers to spoils of war that were acquired through peaceful means.
Okay, so not through fighting.
Exactly, like land, goods, or other valuables.
Got it.
And this brings up a crucial question about the nature of the Prophet's belongings.
Okay.
The Hadith explains that anything the Prophet possessed was considered sadaqah.
Sadaqah, meaning charitable wealth. That's a fundamental concept in Islam. It purifies wealth and invests in the well-being of the community.
So the Prophet's possessions being sadaqah were not inheritable.
Not even by his own daughter, Fatima.
Exactly. So when Fatima asks for her share,
Okay.
Abu Bakr, the first caliph after the Prophet, upholds this principle.
He does.
He says he won't deviate from what the Prophet established
Right.
regarding sadaqah.
He doesn't want to stray from the path.
It shows his commitment to those teachings and to ensuring resources are distributed equitably.
And Umar, the second caliph, followed the same principle,
He did.
meticulously managing the Prophet's properties.
Like how?
He distributed some in Medina to Ali and Abbas,
Okay.
but kept others like those in Khaybar and Fadak under state management.
Right, so they would benefit the whole Muslim community.
Exactly, just as they had during the Prophet's lifetime.
This highlights the importance of following the Prophet's example.
It does. It's about understanding why things were done a certain way
Yes, not just what was done,
and the reasoning behind those decisions.
which is something that resonates throughout Islamic tradition.
Absolutely.
It's about the why behind the what.
Exactly. The early caliphs' actions weren't random.
No, they weren't.
They demonstrated their commitment to the Prophet's example
Okay.
and their understanding of managing resources
Right.
for the good of the community.
So we've seen how kumus relates to inheritance.
We have.
Now, how did it work in practice?
Okay, good question.
We see a delegation from the tribe of Abdul Qais approaching the Prophet for guidance.
Makes sense.
This wasn't unusual. Many tribes sought his counsel
Yeah.
on matters of faith and everyday life.
So what happened in this case?
This encounter shows the practical implications of kumus.
Okay.
The Prophet instructs them on the basics of Islam
Right?
and, importantly,
Yes.
on paying kumus for war booty.
So it wasn't just an abstract idea.
No, it was an active part of their system,
Their economic and social system.
and the way the Prophet distributed kumus is fascinating. He prioritized the needs of the Muslim community,
Okay.
using it for various charitable purposes.
So it supported the whole society.
It did.
Yeah.
But what's equally interesting is that he was flexible at times.
Oh, really?
Like sometimes he granted extra shares to individuals
Okay.
who had been exceptionally courageous
Interesting.
or who had served the community in a special way.
So recognizing and rewarding those who went above and beyond
Exactly.
to contribute to the cause of Allah.
There's the story of Jabir, who was promised a share by the Prophet.
Okay.
And even after the Prophet's death, Abu Bakr made sure he received it.
Oh, wow.
Even after death, honoring commitments.
It's powerful.
So kumus wasn't a rigid rule.
Right.
It was a principle applied with wisdom and flexibility.
So it's dynamic.
Yes. And this brings us to a key point.
Let's hear it.
Kumus goes beyond just material wealth.
I see.
There's a hadith where the Prophet refers to himself as Al-Qasim,
Al-Qasim.
meaning the distributor, suggesting his role wasn't just about distributing wealth,
Right.
but also knowledge and understanding of Islam.
That's a beautiful expansion of the concept.
It is. It shows that sharing knowledge, guidance, spiritual insights.
It's just as important as distributing wealth.
Because true prosperity includes both material and spiritual well-being.
I like that.
And this resonates with the Prophet's own life.
How so?
He chose a simple lifestyle despite having access to wealth. He emphasized generosity and contentment.
Yeah, it's a powerful example.
It is. True leadership isn't about accumulating wealth,
No, it's not.
but about using it for the greater good.
Exactly. And his advice to Hakim bin Hizam really emphasizes this.
Okay.
He stressed giving over taking and said true wealth lies in generosity and detachment from possessions.
It's a reminder that kumus transcends the purely material. It represents generosity, contentment, and spiritual growth.
And it urges us to think about how we use our resources, both material and spiritual.
To make ourselves and our community better.
Absolutely. It's interesting to think about those ideas about treaties and conduct we were discussing and how they play out in today's world. Things are so complex now with international relations and even personal interactions.
It's true.
We have to really think about those values.
Right. It's about the why behind the what.
Exactly. We have to grasp the deeper values behind the rules.
Absolutely.
Like, take the story of the Prophet releasing the prisoners of war from the Hawazin tribe.
Okay, after the Battle of Hunain.
Yes, where the Muslim army was overconfident at first.
Right.
And then faced a fierce counterattack.
It was a tough battle.
It was. Even though they won, the Prophet chose to show mercy.
He did.
He released the prisoners. It wasn't just about following a rule.
No, it was about compassion and reconciliation.
Even towards his opponents.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Especially in our world today.
Yeah, where there's so much conflict and division.
It shows us that building peace takes more than just agreements.
Right. It takes a willingness to find common ground.
To look beyond our differences.
And then there's the hadith about breaking treaties.
And betraying trust.
That's a strong warning.
It is.
Our words and commitments matter.
They do.
And there are serious consequences if we break them.
Not just in this life.
But in the
Those flags of betrayal on the day of judgment.
Yeah.
That image is intense.
It is. It reminds us that integrity and trustworthiness are essential.
For a just society.
But it's not just about avoiding betrayal.
Right.
It's about creating a culture of honesty and accountability.
And all our interactions.
Exactly.
This deep dive has been so insightful.
Me too.
It's amazing how these stories from so long ago still hold such important lessons.
That's the beauty of these traditions.
It is.
They go beyond time and context.
Yeah, they speak to something deeper.
To our human experience.
Our desire for meaning and purpose.
Let's go back to kumus for a minute.
Okay.
It started in the context of war,
Right.
but it can still apply today.
How so?
It makes us rethink how we view and use our resources
Okay.
and to recognize our responsibility,
To our community and society.
not just ourselves.
So are you saying we should all be calculating 1/5 of our income?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
The exact practice of kumus from back then might not directly apply today, but the principles are still important.
Like what?
Generosity.
Okay.
Understanding that our wealth is a trust from Allah and using it to help those in need.
So it's more about the intention,
Yes, and the mindset behind our actions.
not just a rigid calculation.
Exactly. We need to capture the spirit of Kumus
Okay.
by embracing generosity, social responsibility, and gratitude.
That reminds me of the story about the prophet refusing to help a boss carry his share of the wealth.
From Bahrain.
It seemed harsh at first.
It did, but it was a lesson about greed and detachment from possessions.
Interesting.
It showed that true leadership isn't about wanting more and more.
Right.
It's about prioritizing the needs of others.
It challenges us to examine our own relationship with wealth.
Right.
Are we always wanting more?
Or are we content with what we have and willing to share?
Those are good questions to ask ourselves
It's easy to get caught up in material things.
and lose sight of what truly matters.
We can learn from these traditions. They offer wisdom and help us live a balanced life.
We've covered so much today.
Wow.
All the different aspects of Kumus, the ethics of treaties,
The importance of integrity.
and the consequences of betrayal.
These stories give us universal insights.
Yeah, into human nature and how societies work.
And timeless values that build a just and compassionate world.
And we've been encouraged to think about our own relationship with wealth.
With generosity and responsibility.
I'm curious about the concept of fey,
Okay.
those spoils of war obtained without fighting.
Right.
How does that apply to situations where there isn't a battle?
That's a great question.
It is.
It makes us think about Fae in a more metaphorical way.
Okay.
In our world today, it could be any unexpected gain, like an inheritance or a sudden opportunity.
So even those games should be subject to the principles of Kumus.
There might not be a strict obligation to calculate 1/5,
I see.
but the principle of recognizing those gains as blessings and using them for good is still important.
So it's about gratitude and understanding that our fortune isn't just our own doing.
Right. It often involves divine favor.
That's a nuanced perspective.
It reminds us to stay humble even in our successes.
And to acknowledge the role of grace in our lives.
True prosperity isn't just about material wealth.
Okay.
It's about spiritual growth, gratitude, and sharing our blessings.
That reminds me of the Hadith, where the prophet says a giving hand is better than a receiving hand.
It highlights the value of generosity.
And the power of giving.
Remember, it's not just about giving money.
Right.
We can give our time, our skills, our compassion.
Our knowledge.
Every act of giving can make a difference.
This has broadened my understanding of Kumus.
It's not just a historical practice or a set of rules.
It's a whole philosophy of life.
One that emphasizes gratitude and using what we have for a higher purpose.
And speaking of embodying Kumus,
Yes.
I'm curious about those instances where the prophet made exceptions in how he distributed Kumus.
Like giving extra shares to certain people.
What can we learn from that?
It shows the importance of wisdom and discernment.
When applying principles.
We have guidelines and traditions,
Right.
but there's room for flexibility.
So it's not about blindly following rules.
That's about understanding the principles behind them.
And applying them with compassion.
The prophet balanced justice with mercy
Okay.
and recognized that people have different needs and make different contributions.
This makes me think about the story where the Ansar,
The people of Medina.
yes, who would welcome the prophet and the early Muslims.
Right.
They felt a bit disgruntled when the prophet favored the Quraysh
His own tribe
in distributing the spoils of war.
from the Hawazin tribe.
They felt it was unfair.
It's understandable given their sacrifices.
The prophet addressed their concerns directly.
He did.
He acknowledged their sacrifices.
But also explained the need to strengthen the faith of those newly embracing Islam.
To build unity within the Muslim community.
And his words to them were so profound.
What did he say?
He asked, "Won't you be pleased to see people go with fortune while you return with Allah's apostle to your houses? By Allah, what you will return with is better than what they are returning with."
Wow, that's deep.
It reminds us that true wealth goes beyond material possessions.
It's about spiritual connection and closeness to Allah.
The Prophet navigated those social dynamics so well.
He did.
He addressed concerns with empathy.
And guided his followers towards a deeper understanding of true prosperity.
This deep dive has been amazing.
It has.
We've gone from the historical context of Kumus to its application in the Prophet's life.
And its relevance for us today.
We've explored the ethics of treaties,
the importance of integrity,
and the consequences of betrayal.
These stories offer universal insights into human nature.
And how societies function.
And they highlight enduring values that contribute to a just and compassionate world. We've been encouraged to examine our own lives and values.
And our role in creating a better world, these teachings echo through time,
They do.
inspiring us to live out the spirit of Kumis.
This brings us to an important question.
What's that?
How can we, living in a world so different from the Prophet's time, practically apply the concept of Kumis today?
What does it look like to truly embody that spirit in our modern world?
That's a great question.
We can't just replicate the practices from the past.
Right.
We need to understand the principles and adapt them to our context.
So how do we do that?
How can we bring the spirit of Kumis into our lives?
What are some concrete ways to take those ancient teachings and make them relevant to our modern lifestyles?
That's a great question. We can dive into some examples and strategies for integrating those principles into our daily routines.
And our financial decisions.
And even how we interact with others.
This sounds like a lot to unpack.
It is, but it's exciting.
I'm ready. Let's bridge the gap between those timeless teachings and our modern lives.
Let's start with those core values of Kumis.
Okay.
Generosity, social responsibility, and gratitude. How can we develop those within ourselves?
And turn them into actions that benefit everyone.
Exactly. It's about weaving those values into our lives.
Letting them part of who we are.
And how we interact with the world. You know, when we talk about generosity, it's not just about how much we give, but the spirit behind it. The hadith about Hakim bin Hizam is a good example.
Okay, the successful businessman.
Yes, he was offered wealth after the Prophet passed away, but he turned it down.
He did. He chose to rely on his own efforts.
It seems counterintuitive.
It does.
But it teaches us that true contentment isn't about having a lot of money. It's about detachment from material things. And faith in Allah's provision.
So giving should feel like a privilege.
Exactly, not a burden.
But how can we cultivate that mindset?
Yeah, in a world that's all about acquiring more and more.
It's tough.
It is. It starts with a shift in perspective. Instead of seeing wealth as a measure of success, we can see it as a way to make a positive impact.
To help others.
Exactly. Like the Prophet emphasized sadaqah.
Right. Voluntary charity.
It wasn't just an obligation. It was about having a compassionate heart.
And actively looking for ways to help.
It goes beyond just giving money.
It does.
We can share our time, our skills, our knowledge.
So generosity is more than just financial contributions.
It's about recognizing all the ways we can help.
And having an abundance mindset.
And don't underestimate the power of small acts of kindness.
Right. Even those can make a difference.
Now let's talk about social responsibility.
Okay. What does that look like today?
It's more than just fulfilling our civic duties.
Like paying taxes and obeying laws?
It's about actively engaging with our communities. Recognizing that we're all connected.
And working towards the well-being of society.
So it's about moving beyond just ourselves.
Considering the needs of others.
Exactly. We're part of a larger system.
And our actions have an impact.
So how can we share social responsibility in our lives?
What are some practical ways?
We can support local businesses. Volunteer our time to organizations. Advocate for social justice.
Or even be more mindful of our consumption habits.
Right, how they impact the environment.
Those are great examples.
It's about taking responsibility for our role in society.
And trying to make it better.
Even small efforts can add up.
To create a bigger impact.
Now let's move on to gratitude.
Okay, the last core value.
Gratitude is key.
Why is that?
It helps us appreciate what we have.
Instead of focusing on what we lack.
Exactly. We can appreciate all our blessings.
And recognize that our abundance comes from Allah and others.
So gratitude helps us move away from that feeling of scarcity.
Right, and entitlement.
It helps us be more humble and appreciative.
So how do we foster gratitude?
It can be simple. Like taking a few minutes to reflect on what we're thankful for. You could keep a gratitude journal or express appreciation to people around you.
Or even just notice the beauty of the world.
Those are powerful practices.
They can really shift our mindset.
And when we're grateful, we naturally want to give back more.
It becomes a positive cycle.
So we've explored those three core values.
Generosity, social responsibility, and gratitude.
As ways to embody the spirit of Kumis.
And we talked about practical actions.
To bring those values to life.
And these values can make the world a better place.
They can. The teachings of Kumis are timeless.
They are. They're not just ancient rituals.
It's a whole philosophy.
That can guide us towards a more fulfilling life. This deep dive has been incredible.
It has. It's made me think differently about wealth and giving.
Me too. And my place in society.
I'm glad to hear that.
The echoes of Kumis are powerful.
They remind us that true prosperity is about more than just money.
It's about spiritual growth, ethical conduct, and helping others. To our listeners, keep exploring these concepts.
Yeah, delve into Islamic traditions.
And find your own ways to embody the spirit of Kumus.
May this journey inspire us all.
To create a world filled with generosity, compassion, and justice.